Premier League football returns to the London Stadium on Monday evening with Brentford, the visitors. And joining me to discuss this, Charlie, how are you?
Knackered, mate, but yeah, enjoying a weekend as usual. I'm trying to find any way to get out of the house and do anything other than be responsible for a 3-year-old child. So, other than that, all good. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. I'm just starting a fortnight's annual leave from work, so that can't be too bad, can it? I dare say, Mrs. and my daughter have all, well, in fact, I know they've already got certain plans in place as to go here on this day and do this on that day, and all. You know, it is. So.
Every time I talk to you, you're starting a 2-week annual leave period. I'm sure.
Well, it probably feels like that for you. It certainly doesn't feel like that for me. I got to tell you. So, but anyway, so Charlie, obviously the game against Brentford on Monday evening. We're recording this on Saturday evening. By the time this goes out, it'll be Sunday. And obviously, I will just add this: it's the day of the boycott, the Brentford boycott, which has been talked about for what seems like an eternity, and it's now just a matter of, as we record this, 2 days away. I take it you've probably seen a lot of the pleas, if you will, the sort of like the tactics from the club of trying to sort of get you to buy tickets at some sort of knockdown price. Have you been getting all those texts like the rest of us?
Oh, I long ago blocked the club's number from my mobile phone. Don't worry about that.
Oh dear, yeah, no, I've been getting absolutely bombarded with it, mate. And I dare say I'm not the only one. Maybe I should leak out your book.
Yeah, nothing useful has ever come through that number. So yeah, that was blocked a long time ago.
What are your thoughts? What I mean, do you think that 62,500 spectators, if everybody turns up, which I doubt they will, what are your thoughts? Because I did a video a week or so back where I asked the question, what is success in terms of the people that stay away? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that Hammers United and the other groups that are sort of leading these protests have chosen this game. I think it's a cleverly selected game for the boycott because, quite frankly, there'll be a head start before the boycott was even announced, because this was never going to be a 62,500 game. This was always going to be home, relegation scrap, Brentford, Monday night, getting towards winter, getting cold, getting wet. There was always going to be minimum 5,000 empty seats there, probably nearer to 10,000 empty seats there on Monday night. So that's a bit of a head start for the protest. I think if it starts looking like there's maybe a third of that stadium that's empty, 20,000 empty seats, somewhere close to that, I think that'd be a very good showing for the protest. I've seen a lot of arguing this week between fans. Should I go? Shouldn't I go? You should go. You shouldn't go. I'm kind of at the point now where I've made my decision. I'm not going. I've actually couldn't go even if I wanted to now because I've arranged to go work away for the evening. But yeah, I'm sure I would have been there if there wasn't a protest. But I think there'll be a decent, noticeable difference on the cameras. The club will spin it as they always do. We're not expecting anything less. They'll say it's a cold Monday night, end of October, getting towards the winter, and on telly. They'll try and play it down as much as they can. They've obviously tried to minimise it with ticket sales and giving tickets away, albeit all but giving tickets away. Obviously, Nuno's first game, that wasn't ever a coincidence, in my opinion. That was a very cleverly selected tactic from the ball to try and minimise the turnout. It seems the wrong word. It's the opposite, isn't it? But
mitigate the damage.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that wasn't a coincidence. I think that was designed by the board. I think ideally this would have been an even bigger game for Nuno, because I think in their mind, a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about this being his first game. I think the intention was to let Potter or an interim go through Everton and Arsenal, and this was what they intended to be the new manager's first game. Obviously, it's not quite that, but it's still the new manager's first home game. In my view, there'll be more. We've got if we cave to every tactic and every time there's someone saying, "Oh, but it's a big game, it's a 6-pointer, you got a new manager, there's this reason, that reason, you got to go support the team." If we cave to every one of them demands, we'd never protest. So, yeah, I hope there's a good turnout for it. I suspect there will be. I've seen some people suggesting some very lofty, ambitious numbers, like a half-empty stadium. I think that's quite ambitious. I'd be very pleased if there was. But yeah, 20,000 empty seats, that's certainly going to be noticeable. So fingers crossed, and let's see what happens.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think if it's a third empty, I think that's a start. I'm of the opinion that you don't want to sort of set yourself a sort of like a ridiculous target, like maybe sort of like only a quarter of the fans going or half the fans going. Let's start small, but noticeable. Let's put it that way, and then let's look to try and see if as we go along we can gain a bit of traction. Before we get into talking about the match itself, Charlie, just to sort of like say to anybody that's watching to please don't forget to drop a like on the stream, share this content onto your social media platform, and check to see if you are subscribed. And if you are not, please click subscribe. It takes a second of your time. It's completely free of charge. Don't get any data sensitive information. It just grows the channel into something bigger than what you find it. If you've got a hype as well, I believe that also helps as well. So why not donate that to this particular broadcast? So Charlie, what are your thoughts on Brentford, the current iteration of Brentford Football Club under the managership of a certain Keith Andrews, who previously was their set piece coach, and the departure of Thomas Frank, he's now been promoted to the hot seat. What are your thoughts on Keith Andrews? What are your thoughts on Brentford this season and as a club?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the manager, in terms of Keith Andrews, he was a little, from the outside at least. I mean, Brentford fans will probably have a totally different perspective on this, but from the outside, he was a bit of a nobody, wasn't he? He's obviously had coaching roles throughout the Football League, and obviously came into Brentford with being highly thought of with high praise. I think it was definitely a bold shout to promote essentially a set piece coach to head coach. It's an even bolder shout when you consider that they lost not only their manager, some of the backroom team, they lost their captain in Norgard. Obviously lost Mbuemo. I'm definitely forgetting someone. Wissa. But they've lost a big chunk of what made them so successful last season. I think I, along with a lot of people, had them tipped for, if not relegation, then certainly a relegation battle. So I think versus expectations, I think they're doing okay. I think they're still just about above where you would expect them to be. Obviously doing significantly better than us, but who isn't, apart from Wolves? So I think they've had a fairly solid start to the season. I'm going to do something that I really dislike on videos now, because I hate saying I haven't really seen them. I don't really know much about them, but I feel like they haven't been on TV a lot this season, or they've been playing at the same times as us a lot this season. I don't feel like I've watched them at all in full this season. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like I've seen a lot of their team this season. They've got a few good players. Good, decent team. Trying to word this in a way that's not too disrespectful, but it is probably quite disrespectful. But if you ask me, they're a bit of a nothing club in the Premier League. Sorry, any Brentford fans that are watching. I mean,
that's them all turned off.
Yeah.
Thanks,
so
Charlie.
No, it's not. They're just piling hate comments in the comments. So just upping the interaction for you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, if Premier League fans put in what's your ideal Premier League, I think apart from Brentford fans, no one's putting Brentford in there. Not many people are putting Brighton in there. So I do struggle to see them as any kind of solid Premier League club, but they've done well. They've performed well above expectations, and if they carry on like they have done at the start of this season, I imagine they'll stay up and carry on putting in a good showing like they have done the last few years.
Fair enough. I mean, look, they're a little bit of a rags to riches story, aren't they? I mean, what, 10, 15, 20 years ago, Brentford were sort of, just and again, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I mean, back then they certainly weren't anything close to resembling what they are now, a top flight club. And they've been a top flight club now. I think this is their 4th season. And you're sort of like, I think probably the best thing that I knew Brentford for, apart from, it was not too far from Twickenham or places like that, would be the fact that their old ground, Griffin Park, had a pub on every corner. Other than that, I think that was probably the only thing I really knew Brentford for as a football club. Now, I mean, they're certainly, they've changed that perception from my angle anyway. Still a club that you sort of exactly what you say, that they're. If you was creating a 20-team Premier League from scratch and you took in all things like history and capacity and catchment area, all the other things that sort of like you think make a club in terms of their stature, in terms of what they bring to the table as a Premier League, they'd probably be in the same bracket as largely as Bournemouth. And again, I'm not trying to sort of do Bournemouth down. I think what they've done to get to where they are and to maintain it is absolutely outstanding. But they wouldn't be one of the top 20 if you were to pick 20 teams from scratch.
I don't think they'd be one of the top 40, if I'm honest. I think
Probably
between
not.
it, we're not saying we do this now, that would be all night, but I think we could probably name 20 EFL clubs that most people would rather see in the Premier League than Brentford, Bournemouth. But all credit to them. They're kind of Moneyball on steroids kind of football club, aren't they? They're obviously doing something right in the stats department and the scouting and recruitment department. They're making enough money to see them succeed in the Premier League. So, yeah, all the credit to them. It's just not an exciting team in the Premier League. And I never really found them too exciting to watch, even under Thomas Frank. I guess that's maybe where I do see them a little bit different to Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth are quite enjoyable to watch, and I like their manager as well. Whereas you sort of compare Iriola and Bournemouth to Brentford and Keith Andrews. I nearly forgot his name then. It says something, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what just sets Brentford back, really.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's get some team news out of the way. So now my resource that I'm using is who scored. So if there's anything that I get wrong, Charlie, please feel free to pick it up, because I'll be honest with you, I've not seen either of the press conferences from the respective managers. But according to who scored, as far as Brentford's concerned, they've got Paris Makoma, Gustavo Nunes, and Tony Milambo, who are out of the fixture on Monday evening, with Reece Nelson listed as a doubt. As far as we're concerned, I think we know that the big one that's going to be missing is the BFG. That robust centre forward known as Niclas Fulkrug will be missing, and it appears could be missing for some time, Charlie.
Yeah, big one in terms of stature, big one in terms of, am I really that bothered based on performances this season? Not really. I mean, don't get me wrong, the alternative options are not great, and I'm sure we'll discuss them when we talk about the team, but were we talking about this game with Fulkrug having just played for Germany and not got injured, I still wouldn't want to see him in the starting 11. So in that sense, it's not really a big miss, in my opinion.
Yeah. Other than Fulkrug, I think the only injury absentee, and he's probably not even someone that you'd sort of say, with all due respect to him, is really sort of considered to be a first team pick, is George Earthy. Do you think that the fact that we've got a full complement pretty much, with the exception of those two, do you think that that's to our advantage and to their disadvantage? Or not necessarily?
I guess we'd rather have the options and the availability than not, but that availability and the options to select from only becomes useful if we are to deem some of the squad players competent and up to scratch, which I think, based on discussions we've had previously, and I'm sure we'll talk about the team, I think there's a lot of the squad that just aren't up to it at the moment. So, yeah, I guess rather have them available and have the options than not. But in terms of giving us an advantage, I'm not too sure. I still think there's significant holes in this squad that cause us problems, and it's just been through a total mismanagement that somehow we're into the season with strikers we don't trust, defenders we don't trust, goalkeepers we don't particularly trust, and midfielders we don't really know which direction we're going in. So apart from that, yeah, great squad depth.
Who's the West Ham player that you think will be the absolute key to us getting a positive result on Monday evening, Charlie?
Everyone would instantly say Bowen to that, and I think we
Yep.
all know why. So I'm going to put him aside and say that's the obvious answer.
Mhm.
I think you will know from my comment on your preview with Ben for the Arsenal game.
Mhm.
I would have dropped this player last against Arsenal, and based on his performance, I haven't actually seen, but I've heard a lot of reviews because I still haven't watched the Arsenal game. I don't intend to be honest. But based on everything I've heard about his performance, it was a bit of a shambles by all accounts. But I think I would have him in. Well, I would definitely have him in my first team of this game, despite wanting to drop him last week or last game. And if he turns up, he can be a match winner, and that's Mr. Paquetá.
Have you been quite alarmed by his apparent drop-off in form, though, Charlie? Because he started the season in pretty decent shape, getting goals and assists and whatever. But last few games, I'm not really sort of seeing too much output from him, in all honesty. Is that a concern to you?
Definitely a concern. A conspiracy theorist among us would suggest that he was playing very well before the transfer window closed, and then since the transfer window closed and his goal at Forest, must have been Forest, which was maybe a few days before the window closed. Since then, he's been pretty crap. So a conspiracy theorist among us might say he was playing for a move and now hasn't got to play for that move, so gone off the ball again. I think maybe that's stretching conspiracies too far. I think pretty much the whole time he's been at West Ham, obviously he's had a lot going on. But the whole time he's been here, he's been very inconsistent. He'll have a few good games, and he'll be totally non-existent for a few games, and then all of a sudden he'll come out of nowhere and do a Rabona and then flick it over someone's head and volley it into the top corner. So, yeah, I mean, if he turns up, he can be an absolute match winner. He can be the difference between, because on the days, he could easily be the best player on the pitch on Monday night, quite comfortably. Am I confident we're going to see that? Not necessarily based on recent form, but yeah, hopefully we see it. I think. Am I getting slightly fed up with the Lucas Paquetá
Histrionics?
Yeah, Sargas, histrionics. Just he doesn't come across as, and I'm going to get slated because I think there's a lot of the West Ham fan base think he's our best player, and as I say, I have said on his day he can be our best player. I just don't think we see that day often enough. A player as good a quality as he is. We can debate whether that's because of the team, the players around him, the manager, the system, whatever. But long story short, he needs to start putting some performances out if we're going to rely on him to stay in the league.
Yeah, he's not our. I mean, I would say he's our best player in terms of potential. Is he our best player in terms of actual output? Nope. I think that guy there on the screen is.
Yeah, and ultimately, if we're going to score on Monday, if we score on Monday night, most of my money is going on Jarrod Bowen to speed the scorer. There isn't many other scorers that you see on that pitch, but yeah, he's obviously the main man. I just thought I'd throw a bit of a curveball out there after saying obviously I would have dropped Paquetá against Arsenal and him turning in a 2 out of 10.
Yeah. So with that being the case, I mean, obviously, like I say, we've referenced about Fulkrug being absent. Obviously, we're talking about Bowen there. So I suppose we probably need to ask the question, Charlie, and the observant viewers will have seen my 11, which I will give a little bit more detail as to what my thinking is for the reasons behind my picks. But give me your picks, Charlie. And would you leave Bowen where he is, or would you move him to play as the striker? What are you doing if this is your 11?
Yeah. So I did see your team come up. I didn't actually take a notice of it. So that's
Most people don't.
No, that's true. Maybe that's just normal. So I don't actually know what you've gone with, but I was thinking about this earlier. Obviously, knowing that we was doing this video tonight, and there's a couple of areas of the team that actually I'm not too asked between one way or the other. And I think Bowen is one of those because I think he delivers wherever he is on the pitch. I think I've got a preference, and I think my preference would be Bowen right, Marshall up front.
Mhm.
I also wouldn't have a problem seeing something like Bowen up front and Guilherme on the right, because I think from the limited information that we've seen of Guilherme and sort of the knowledge of him as a player before West Ham, admittedly mostly from Football Manager, but a little bit of research when he joined West Ham, I think his best position, and we haven't really seen it, but I think his best position is on that right-hand side. Obviously, we don't get to see it with Bowen being there, and rightly so. But yeah, if I was to see Bowen up front and Guilherme on the right, or Bowen on the right and Marshall up front, either or, I'm pretty happy with on Monday night. I think my preference, just because I think he deserves a go, and he can't perform much worse than the other striking options that we've seen this season. I think my preference would be Bowen right, Marshall up front. I think Somerville's a given on the left. The defence is pretty nailed on. You could argue about the right back, but I think Wan-Bissaka's a better player than Kyle Walker-Peters. So I would go Wan-Bissaka, Areola's keeper. And then the midfield is another area where either or, I'm not too arsed. And if I saw Potts or Magassa starting as the deep line defensive midfielder on Monday night, either way, I'm fairly content. I think, again, my preference would be to see Potts, just to, again, give him a bit of a go, see a little bit more of him than we've seen already, and then Magassa can come on later on. But I'm not going to be disappointed if it's Magassa, and then in front of the defensive midfielder, I would have two forward-thinking, footballing. I've seen plenty of people saying about Souček coming back in the team. I do not want to see that personally. Maybe that's my own personal biases coming in, but I would have two front forward thinking players in front of either Potts or Magassa, and that being Fernandes and Paquetá.
That's not a million miles away from the team that I picked, if I'm being honest, which will, I believe, be coming up on the next slide within the next 30 seconds. So I'm just going to carry on talking to fill up that dead time and hope that nobody notices. And then, as if by magic, my slide will appear and I'll be able to seamlessly, like that, get into what I was thinking. I mean, look, to be honest, probably a lot of it doesn't really need an awful lot of explanation. Goalkeeper, I think, takes care of itself, in all honesty. And I'm not saying that necessarily Areola is a reincarnation of Gordon Banks, but he's certainly been better than what we saw off of the Lurpak man. So he can stay where he is. Thank you very much. I wouldn't be averse to seeing Fabianski at some point, but I think that would be a damning indictment of our situation, our recruitment methods, that if we get to a point in the season where we're turning to a guy who's 40 years of age that we actually put on the dole queue a couple of months earlier, and then sort of got into a situation where we were like, let's see if he's up to anything and get him back sort of through the door. But the back four, I think Diouf left. I know he got led a merry dance against Arsenal, but there's a lot of players that are going to get mugged off by Saka. Let's be completely real about that. Yes, I think his strength is going forwards, but against the better teams, I think that's where he is going to get exposed. And the Arsenal away is going to be one of the harder games he's going to play this season. Now, probably the one at the back four, I think Kilman, Mavropanos probably take care of themselves, in all honesty. I think we can probably say that Todibo, I think it's very likely that he's played his last game in Claret and Blue, barring some miraculous turnaround in fortunes for the Frenchman. I don't see it. The reason I've gone for Walker-Peters at right back, I didn't actually think that he deserved to get dropped out to allow Wan-Bissaka to come straight into the team against Arsenal. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, out of the two, Walker-Peters for me is the more offensive. Now, I think that at home against Brentford, who, let's not kid ourselves, Brentford are down in that lower section. And so this is a game that I think we need to go and try and attack them. And Nuno is known for trying to get a lot of the attacks going down the flanks. So I think that Walker-Peters offers, in that respect, a little bit more. Now, you've got 2 attacking fullbacks. A lot of people would say, well, yeah, but that's where I think Freddy Potts comes in for me. I've not been overly impressed with Magassa. I'm not saying he's looked a complete dud, but I've not been blown away by him. And I actually think, if I'm being brutally honest about it, I think he looks quite rash. I think he looks like he could get a second yellow card at any moment. I really do.
He's definitely had a number of iffy moments, hasn't he? I started that 10 minutes, 15 minutes into that Everton game, I was up there in the stands thinking, oh, God, are we going to have to take him off before half-time? Because he was looking a bit questionable. But I think he came into that game later on, and I think he actually had a decent game after eventually. It's not been anything spectacular, but nothing too bad so far.
Yeah, Potts for me would come in from Magassa. I just think that he just looks a lot more calm and would provide that defensive shield to allow the fullbacks to push on a little bit further up the pitch. Paquetá and Fernandes. Now, again, I regret to say, Fernandes came in at the same time as Magassa. 40 million quid if all the clauses and all that get activated. I thought he looked good away at Forest, but let's not kid ourselves. Forest at the time, incidentally managed by Nuno, who I think probably knew he was on the way out. I don't think he's really played that well since. He certainly hasn't looked to me like a £40 million player. But you could argue that Paqueta's, since that game as well, has diminished in returns as well. So there is possibly a case, and I know you mentioned it earlier, Charlie, that one of them drops out and possibly you get Souček in to replace one of them. Which one? Pays your money, takes your choice. For me, I don't think either one of them have been wonderful in their last couple of performances. But against Palace, Everton, and Arsenal, the games I'm talking about, I think they've flattered to deceive at best. But then the front three, I'm leaving Bowen where he normally has his. I think there's more that you get out of Bowen on the right than. Don't get me wrong, when he's played as a striker, he's done a very good job. But I just think that position on the right, I know a lot of people could turn around and say, you know what Bowen's going to do. That's great, but stopping him is a certainly different proposition. You might know what's coming, but doing something is just, I don't think you can do an awful lot about him when he cuts in on that left foot and lets fly. Somerville on the right, on the left, sorry. Put him on the left, sort of doing the same thing on the opposite flank. And for me, when he gets going, the opposition fullback is just sort of panicking for me. And Marshall, why not? I'm a big champion of playing youth players, and I've got 2 of them in the squad there. I would have a couple of others on the bench besides. Give him an opportunity. Why do we keep sort of turning to 30-plus-year-old knackered strikers in Fulkrug and Wilson? It doesn't bear any sort of reap any dividends for the club for me. I just think let's give him a go. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen what Wilson does when he starts a game, and that's the precise sum of nothing. I don't think he's got it in him to play a full game, and I don't even know if he's got it in him to play 45 minutes. So he's not really an option, in my opinion. So the only option is you play Marshall there, Bowen there, potentially Paquetá, Guilherme. Those are your options, really. I don't think there is anything else. I don't know who else you've got. For my own sins, I don't massively keep an eye on the under-21s just for I have enough talking about the senior team and then like to switch off from it afterwards to try and forget about them. So I don't know if there's a striker that's putting up trees in the under-21s, but it's just not that. How we've left ourselves in this position is quite beyond me. How we've got to the point where before the transfer window closed, we was saying we're going to be in this position, and lo and behold, it's come to fruition is just negligence, really. So I think Marshall is as good a shout as any. Do I think Nuno's going to do it? I mean, he kind of made some positive hints before the international break, didn't he? I do worry he's going to go for the senior striker and he's going to start Callum Wilson, and maybe we'll sit here in a few days' time Callum Wilson scored a brace and we've won 3-0 with him starting. But yeah, I am concerned that he's going to go with Callum Wilson, either or Callum Wilson or Paquetá up front with Souček coming in the midfield, which, in my opinion, will just break down a lot of the attacks. Not that we have loads.
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting waiting game until an hour and 15 minutes or so. I think it is before the team sheets are announced. So what's that, 6:45 on Monday, and we'll know what Nuno's going to go with. Personally, I do lean towards Marshall. If I sort of read it right, obviously the fact that Callum Wilson in the 2 games under Nuno had an opportunity to be involved and wasn't. And he actually turned to Callum Marshall before he even considered utilising Callum Wilson. So that's the reason I think that Callum Marshall's probably going to get the nod. But we'll wait and see. What's your prediction, Charlie?
I said it before the international break, before we played Arsenal, after we played Arsenal, I think we'd win. It just feels like maybe I'm not giving Brentford enough credit or respect here, but it feels like one of them games we tend to do quite well in. Brentford at home. I don't think it's going to be a goal fest. I think it's actually going to be quite an awful game. Hopefully it'll turn out to be a 4-3 now, but yeah, I think it's going to be a really poor 1-0 scrappy win from West Ham. I think we will win, and then we move on to Leeds on Friday night.
Yeah,
which is going to be a tough game after they've just been beat by Burnley today.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I might as well give you my score prediction. I mean, before the break, I think I said a draw for this. Oh, I don't know. Brentford, I mean, you look at that record. We played them 8 times and won 1 and lost 6.
Yeah, it's not as good as I thought.
Yeah, I can't. Oh dear.
We have to win this game.
We got to win it. We have to win it. I mean, I think if we come away with just a point, given this is a home game, if this was an away game, I'd say, do you know what? Away from home, I don't think you turn your nose up at a point. But against a team that's in the lower reaches and it being our home fixture, I think we got to win it. We have to win it. So I think the same as you. I don't think it's going to be the prettiest game to watch, and I think possibly it could be a sort of game where we're watching it like that. But fuck it, let's just go 1-0. Let's go for a 1-0 home win, please. 90th minute off the goalkeeper's arse. I don't care.
Yeah. It feels very early to be saying a must-win game, and I think people possibly comment and sort of say you can't have a must-win game in October, 10 games into the season or whatever we played. I think having a look at the fixtures in this international, between these 2 international breaks in October and November, I think this is possibly the easiest one. Arguably, you'd say Burnley, but if we don't win, or if we, even worse, if we lose on Monday night and then we go to Ellen Road after they've just been beat on a Friday night under the lights, I don't see this team being up for Ellen Road on a Friday night under the lights in a relegation battle where they're going to be right up for it and know exactly who's coming up there, and they will fancy themselves big time, both the fans and the players. I don't think this squad rises to that occasion. I think they made and die to take some words from our famous song. I think if we lose Monday, I think we lose on Friday, and then we get to Newcastle, who are not playing great right now. So you got beat at Brighton today, but I think they probably got enough to beat us, even if it is at the London Stadium. And then you're going into that Burnley game at home before the international break. Home? Away? Oh, it's home, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got 3 home games.
Yeah.
If you're going into that Burnley game, God, that'd be important. But going back to a conversation you had on See You Next Tuesday, or whatever it's called,
whatever
podcast.
it's called.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant advert for it, Charlie. Thanks for that.
Called it. Yeah. See You Next Tuesday. That's not. Is that
Overland and C word.
Overland and Seaward, yeah. I knew it weren't right. Overland and Seaward. I was listening to that the other day, and you and Michael and sat talking about points expected in these 4 fixtures, and I think we have to be getting 7, and we give ourselves a fighting chance, and we pick up a little bit of form, and I think that might just about take us to point per game ratio. If we're scrapping to get 3 in that last game before the November international break, knowing that takes us to whatever points it takes us 7 or something, we're going to be right in the shit when we come back from November internationals to Christmas and January. I'll start to get worried then if we don't pick up 6 or 7 points in these next 4 games.
Yeah, agreed. And any final thoughts, final observations you want to get out there, Charlie, before we knock it on the head?
No, I don't think so. I think going back to where we started, I think hopefully we'll see a good turnout or a good showing from people not turning up to the boycott. But I hope the team go out, show what they've got, show a bit of quality that there is in that squad in certain places, and get the 3 points, move on to Leeds on a bit of a high, and then we might start looking forward and upwards rather than being concerned about what's behind us, which isn't much right now. But yeah, it's gonna be a nervous evening watching it in a random pub on my way to Devon. That's my plan.
Oh, very nice. On your way to Devon. Whereabouts?
Yeovil.
So I'm not gonna come down and visit you. Don't
coming
worry.
with me? Yeah, somewhere just outside of Yeovil.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to meet a contractor down there for a bit of a contractual dispute. But that's very boring conversation for a YouTube video.
Yeah, I'm possibly going to be down in Exeter next weekend. So yeah, so nice part of the world. Anyway, guys, we're going to knock it on the head there. As I say, if you could drop a like and a hype, donate your hype this week to you get 3 of them to this particular broadcast. I really would appreciate it if you could share this on your social media platforms as well. And finally, just check to see if you're subscribed. And if you're not, click subscribe. Takes a second of your time. Doesn't cost you any money. We don't get any of your data sensitive information. It just grows the channel into something bigger than it is right now. Charlie, thank you very much indeed for your company.
Always a pleasure.
Always good. And guys, at the moment you can see 2 videos up on your screen and also the little button that's in the center, which if you click that will subscribe you to the channel. Take care. Come on, you irons.